The Eye of Providence on the dollar bill has fueled the theory that the Illuminati are trying to control the world. Some have debated whether they previously intervened in major historical events, such as the French Revolution or the World Wars. There are claims they infiltrate global economies, politics, technology, media, entertainment, and science. But are they even real? If so, are they working to establish a global government? And what if the freedom we know is just an illusion? Up next, we'll dive into this organization, its known history, lesser-known details, and explore what might have happened if it had never disappeared. The All-Seeing Eye. Adam Weishaupt, a German philosopher and law professor, founded the Illuminati on May 1, 1776, in Ingolstadt, Bavaria. The year 1776 holds special significance as it marks when the United States gained independence from Great Britain after 8 grueling years of war. In 1782, 6 years after the order's creation, the Great Seal of the United States was adopted to authenticate official documents, featuring the Eye of Providence above an unfinished pyramid. From their founding in 1776, the Illuminati aimed to enlighten the world by promoting rationalism, free expression, and resistance to religious domination and state overreach. Rooted in Enlightenment details, they championed reason and challenged truths dictated by religious and royal authorities. Their goal was to create an entity capable of seeing all and guiding humanity toward genuine enlightenment. Why does the Great Seal of the United States appear on the dollar bill? It was added in 1935 during Franklin Delano Roosevelt's presidency as a symbol of the nation's core values. The pyramid stands for strength and endurance. Its unfinished form reflects that the American project is ongoing, symbolizing continuous progress. The steps represent the original 13 colonies that laid the foundation of the country. At the top, the all-seeing eye symbolizes divine oversight, God watching over and guiding the creation of the nation. Anwet Coeptus translates to, He has favored our undertakings. It expresses the belief that God supports the founding of the nation. Novus Ordo Seclorum means New Order of the Ages, referring to the establishment of a new political and social system with the birth of the United States, an open break from the old European order. Some theorists claim the eye on the dollar is an Illuminati symbol, a form of constant surveillance and control that crosses all borders. Still, there is no historical evidence that Weishaupt's Illuminati ever used this emblem. The all-seeing eye appears in many global contexts. In certain Christian churches, the eye within the triangle represents God in the Holy Trinity, surrounded by rays of light, as seen in the Aachen Cathedral. It also appears in the 1789 Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, a key document of the French Revolution. Its form is similar to the Eye of Horus from ancient Egyptian culture, known for symbolizing protection and authority. In Freemasonry, the all-seeing eye refers to the great architect of the universe, a higher being who watches over every human act. As the Illuminati grew in numbers and ambition, they began to raise suspicion among authorities. Their push for social and political reform was seen as a threat to the existing order. The original Bavarian Illuminati were officially disbanded in 1785. However, as we'll see, books published in the 19th century claimed they have survived and were pulling the strings behind revolutionary movements. These ideas spread into modern times, fueling the belief that the Illuminati still exist and secretly influence global events from the shadows. In the United States, several founding fathers were members of the Freemasons, which likely helped tie social elites to secret societies like the Illuminati. The New World Order. In today's world, some believe that a small group of powerful individuals is behind an ambitious plan to centralize authority and shape the world's destiny. The alleged agenda aims to establish a single global government, one with total control over politics, the economy, and natural resources. Supporters of this idea argue that a world government would bring stability, encourage internal cooperation, and pave the way to peace. On the other hand, critics view it as a threat to individual freedoms and national sovereignty, calling it the beginning of unchecked control over our lives. The term New World Order has a complicated history. Woodrow Wilson voiced similar ideas in his 1918 14 Points Plan after World War I. He proposed an international system grounded in cooperation and peace, including the creation of the League of Nations, a forerunner to the United Nations, where he envisioned a way to prevent global conflict. His plan did not call for a centralized global rule. Winston Churchill, though he never used the phrase New World Order, directly expressed a vision of international cooperation that echoed this reimagined world. In a 1946 speech known as the Zurich Speech, Churchill proposed the creation of the United States of Europe, aiming to reshape the continent as a step toward lasting global peace. Likewise, Franklin Delano Roosevelt didn't explicitly use the term New World Order, but he supported a vision closely aligned with the concept. Together with Churchill, Roosevelt outlined principles for the post-war world in the Atlantic Charter, 1941, which emphasized respect for national sovereignty, the promotion of free trade, and the disarmament of aggressive nations. Over time, the idea of the New World Order took on darker undertones. Some claim the Illuminati never truly vanished, but instead grew stronger, with long-term goals of global domination. According to these theories, today's Illuminati have allegedly embedded themselves in international institutions like the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank, using them as tools to manipulate decisions and consolidate power. Rather than championing human progress as they once did, the modern Illuminati are portrayed as architects of a system designed to concentrate and control authority. Global finance systems, under this view, aim to keep countries dependent. The buildup of national debt and the influence of institutions like the World Bank and IMF are seen by some as deliberate tactics to control governments. A key element in this alleged New World Order plan is the use of advanced technology to monitor and dominate populations. Access to massive amounts of personal data collected online would allow these elites to predict behaviors and influence decisions. Artificial intelligence would be used to detect patterns and forecast future actions, enabling a subtle yet powerful form of control. Despite the many theories out there, no conclusive evidence proves the Illuminati are active today or working to establish a new world order. But what if the truth was more complicated than it seems, and the levers of power are being pulled in secret? That's what we'll explore next. False flag operations. At times, major historical events have allegedly been deliberately orchestrated by powerful groups, all while the general population remains unaware. Could it be possible that the Illuminati or other secret organizations have driven operations that left a lasting mark on history? If some groups have succeeded, it stands to reason that others might have tried as well. The term false flag comes from the world of sailing and piracy, when ships would raise a flag that wasn't their own to deceive others. In today's context, these operations often involve propaganda, sabotage, or attacks designed to appear as if they were carried out by an enemy, when in truth, they were planned by those who hoped to gain from the resulting chaos. Picture a kingdom called Solaris that wants to invade its neighbor, the Kingdom of Umbra, but knows its citizens wouldn't support a war without a convincing reason. To win public support, Solaris leaders stage an attack on one of their own villages. Believing they're under attack, the people of Solaris rally behind the cause and push for war themselves. Some major historical events are suspected to have been, in fact, false flag operations. On the night of February 27, 1933, the towering Reichstag building, home to the German parliament, was engulfed in flames. Firefighters quickly arrived, but the destruction was beyond repair. Amid the chaos, a young Dutch communist, Marinus van der Lubbe, was arrested and named as the perpetrator. News of the fire shocked Germany. Adolf Hitler, newly appointed as chancellor, accused the communists of trying to overthrow the government. The next day, President Hindenburg signed the Reichstag Fire Decree, which suspended civil liberties and granted the Nazi regime absolute power. Years later, suspicions arose that the Nazis had staged the fire to frame their enemies. Though never conclusively proven, the incident marked the beginning of Hitler's dictatorship. The Gleiwitz incident took place on August 31, 1939, at a radio station in the city of Gleiwitz, now Gleiwitz, Poland. At the time, the region was part of Germany, near the Polish border. During the night, a group of German soldiers disguised in Polish uniforms stormed the station and broadcast a short message in Polish, calling for rebellion against Germany. The next day, Adolf Hitler claimed that Poland had attacked Germany, using the staged event to justify the invasion that began on September 1st. Years later, during the Nuremberg trials, the truth emerged. The incident had been meticulously planned by the Nazis to blame Poland, an act of deception that launched World War II. On the afternoon of November 21, 1939, artillery fire echoed in the small village of Manila, near the border between the Soviet Union and Finland. The Soviets announced that Finnish soldiers had opened fire, killing several of their men. Stalin called the event an intolerable provocation, but Finland denied any involvement, stating that its troops were too far from the area to have fired a shot. In reality, The shelling was carried out by Soviet forces themselves, faking an enemy attack to justify their next move. 4 days later, the Soviet Union launched the Winter War against Finland. Decades later, declassified documents confirmed that the shelling was a false flag operation, crafted to mask Stalin's expansionist ambitions. In 1898, the USS Maine, a modern American battleship, arrived at Havana Harbor amid rising tensions between Spain and Cuban independence movements. Officially, it was there to protect U.S. citizens on the island, but its presence also sent a clear message. The United States was closely watching the situation. On the night of February 15th, an explosion ripped through the vessel, splitting it in two and killing around 260 crew members. The tragedy shocked the nation and left behind a cloud of unanswered questions. What had caused such a catastrophe? To hell with Spain. Remember the Maine, roared newspaper headlines, accusing the Spanish of sabotage. The outcry stirred patriotic fervor and stirred the stage for war. Within months, the U.S. declared conflict, marking the beginning of its rise to global power. The Great Fire of Rome is another event suspected of being a false flag. It raged between July 18th and 23 in the year 64, destroying large parts of the city. According to historical accounts, the flames consumed between 10 and 14 districts, leaving thousands homeless and plunging the empire's capital into chaos. Some say Nero himself set the fire to carry out his own urban plans. Historian Suetonius claimed the emperor wanted to rebuild Rome with a grand design, wide avenues, and massive structures that would glorify his rule. After the fire, Nero launched an ambitious reconstruction plan, introducing broad avenues, new buildings, and constructing the Domus Aurea, his lavish palace. At the same time, though Christianity was still a minority religion, it was starting to gain followers and posed a threat to the established power. Nero may have used the fire as a pretext to blame Christians and unleash brutal persecution in an effort to eliminate the rising challenge. Could a secret organization have played a role in an event like those described, in such a way that only a handful knew the truth? Monarchies, aristocracy, and powerful families. Since ancient times, monarchies and aristocratic dynasties have embodied authority and influence in society. Over generations, these families amassed wealth and land, granting them control over vast resources. They often formed martial alliances with other royal houses, securing the continuity of power, encouraging cooperation among elites, and strengthening their global standing. Some claim that behind the charisma and certain monarchs operated hidden forces, linking their rule to secret organizations such as the Illuminati. The aristocracy made of noble families served for centuries as a key pillar of monarchic systems. Though not always wielding absolute power, these families controlled regional economies and held major sway over national politics. Throughout history, several aristocratic families have been associated with secret societies. Freemasonry, for instance, counted both nobles and bourgeoisie among its members, individuals keen to protect their interest amid social change. According to certain accounts, the Illuminati infiltrated aristocratic elites in order to exert covert influence, ensuring the ongoing prosperity of their class. Are today's social elites under the influence of the Illuminati or some secret society? Do the super rich belong to organizations aiming to rule the world? In the late 18th century, Mayer Amschel Rothschild, a Jewish banker in Frankfurt, Germany, began building a strong financial enterprise. With sharp strategy, he worked with German royalty and sent his 5 sons to different parts of Europe, founding branches in major cities like London, Paris, Vienna, and Naples, a global network that became the backbone of his empire. During the Napoleonic Wars, the Rothschilds became essential by funding both armies and governments, using groundbreaking methods to move money across borders. Their ability to provide secure loans earned them a reputation as the most trusted bankers in Europe. Over time, the Rothschilds broadened their influence, putting money into railroads, mining, and real estate alongside their banking ventures. They built connections with royal houses, state leaders, and major businesses, playing a crucial role in massive efforts like the Suez Canal. Their command of capital movement gave them global reach throughout the 19th century. Today, the Rothschilds remain an influential yet low-profile family. They oversee financial groups such as Rothschild & Company, which specializes in investment banking, asset management, and advising wealthy clients. In addition, they're involved in wine, energy, and charitable initiatives, preserving their legacy as one of the most powerful dynasties in history. In the mid-19th century, Janus Spencer Morgan, patriarch of the Morgan family, began laying the foundation for the Morgan Empire by stepping into international banking in Europe. Though originally American, he moved to London, where he led financial ventures that established him as a key figure in the European banking world. This success paved the way for his son, John Pierpont Morgan, better known as J.P. Morgan, to expand the family's legacy. Born in the United States, J.P. Morgan traveled to Europe at a young age, studying in schools across Switzerland and Germany. He later returned home and used the expertise gained abroad to break into the financial world. There he began building a financial power network unlike anything before, merging companies, restructuring massive firms, and funding major industrial projects. He played a vital role in the rise of giants like U.S. Steel and General Electric, forging an empire that dominated critical sectors. His aggressive approach to consolidation and eliminating rivals made him the most powerful banker of his era. J.D. Rockefeller was born in 1839 and showed a remarkable knack for business from an early age. During the 19th century oil boom, he saw potential in a resource that was beginning to reshape the world. In 1870, he founded Standard Oil, a company that revolutionized the industry by refining, transporting, and distributing oil with unmatched efficiency. The Rockefeller family's wealth grew through strategic and at times controversial tactics, such as exclusive railroad deals and the takeover of rival companies. Standard Oil eventually controlled 90% of the U.S. oil market. Although the Supreme Court broke up the company in 1911 for monopolistic practices, the resulting spin-offs like ExxonMobil and Chevron remain highly profitable. With their fortune, the Rockefellers founded banks, invested in real estate, and founded universities and cultural institutions. They also launched the Rockefeller Foundation, which supported progress in medicine, agriculture, and global development, expanding their influence in critical areas. Today, while their direct grip of the oil industry has lessened, the Rockefellers still hold sway in finance, philanthropy, and global policy. Their foundations carry significant weight in areas like public health and education. Do these families truly hold that much power? How far does their influence really reach? The Rothschilds have long been said to wield major sway over national and international banking systems. They've been linked to the founding of central banks such as the Bank of England, the Bank of France, and later the U.S. Federal Reserve. As for the Morgans, their ties to Yale University have connected them to Skull and Bones, a secret collegiate society. Some claim this group is part of a broader power network that includes the Illuminati, though that remains highly speculative. Some have suspected that J.P. Morgan played a key role in the creation of the U.S. Federal Reserve in 1913. According to certain theories, the Morgan family, alongside other powerful bankers like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, helped shape the system to secure control over the country's monetary policy and safeguard their own financial interests. The Rockefellers have been linked to groups like the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations, forums meant to foster international cooperation, though some interpret them as tools for global control. There has been speculation that the Rockefellers have exerted influence over U.S. politics. Their connections to presidents, members of Congress, and top officials have fueled claims that they help steer major decisions, particularly those tied to energy, banking, and foreign affairs. Mind control, tools of manipulation and power. Since ancient times, religious and political leaders have used psychological persuasion to maintain their hold on power. Mind control operates through various techniques aimed at influencing the human subconscious. One form, brainwashing, seeks to break down a person's existing beliefs to implant new ones. Fear is a powerful tool of control, shaping decisions and behaviors, frequently used by authoritarian regimes and media campaigns. Subliminal methods exist as well, hidden messages in media designed to impact the mind without the audience realizing it. In 1950, the CIA launched Project Bluebird, aimed at exploring methods to alter human behavior. Techniques like hypnosis, drug use, and sensory deprivation were tested to get subjects to reveal secrets or adopt new identities. One of the goals was to find ways to protect American agents from potential mind control strategies used by adversaries like the Soviet Union. Evolving directly from Bluebird, Project Artichoke expanded into even more extreme methods. In 1951, it began investigating the use of drugs like LSD, deep hypnosis, and other tactics for interrogation and manipulation. One of the chilling questions raised during Project Artichoke was, is it possible to control someone enough to make them commit an act against their will? Specific details remain classified, but it's known that the experience inflicted lasting harm, both physical and psychological, on numerous individuals. Officially launched in 1953, MK Ultra expanded on the work of Artichoke and Bluebird. Led by scientist Sidney Gottlieb, the program employed psychedelic drugs, sensory deprivation, physical and psychological abuse, and shock therapies. Its aim was to develop brainwashing methods and shape thought patterns to serve the CIA's objectives. One notorious aspect of MK Ultra involved administering LSD to American and Canadian citizens without their consent. In many instances, the victims had no idea they were being drugged. Operation Chaos, launched in 1967, unfolded during the same era, revealing the scale of CIA operations. Its goal was to monitor U.S. citizens involved in protest movements, under the claim of preventing communist infiltration. A well-known case was that of former Beatle John Lennon, who lived in New York and was surveyed by intelligence agencies due to his outspoken anti-war activism. During the Cold War, paranoia and the escalating tech race between global powers pushed the United States into unusual territory in search of strategic advantages. Remote viewing was one of the phenomena studied under Project Stargate. It refers to a person's claimed ability to preserve details about distant places, objects, or events without using the five senses or prior knowledge. In theory, a psychic agent could observe secret locations, detect enemy military sites, or find missing individuals, all without being physically present. As Stargate developed, people who claimed to have psychic abilities were recruited, along with volunteers trained in specific techniques. Participants took part in controlled sessions where they tried to describe hidden objects or unfamiliar locations. The U.S. wasn't alone in developing such programs. Countries like Japan, China, North Korea, and the Soviet Union also explored mind control and psychic warfare methods. Japan, for instance, conducted disturbing experiments during World War II. In the infamous Unit 731, researchers used chemicals and extreme conditions to study human reactions. After the Korean War ended, reports emerged of American prisoners being subjected to severe physical and psychological torture, extreme isolation, and intense propaganda aimed at reshaping their political loyalties. In the case of the Soviet Union, there's documented use of drugs, isolation, hypnosis, and psychological manipulation to alter human behavior. The Illuminati and other secret organizations are often accused of being behind efforts to manipulate the masses. According to some theorists, these mind control experiments weren't just for military purposes, they were part of a broader plan to subdue the global population. Through these strategies, they would aim to influence what people think, consume, and how they behave. Real mind control experiments have shown that human behavior can be influenced under certain conditions, though controlling the entire global population remains, for now, out of reach. Still, the concerns aren't without merit. Social media, algorithms, and mass surveillance already shape our choices, from what we buy to how we vote. While there's no proven involvement of the Illuminati or other secret groups, exposure to media manipulation is higher now than ever before. Major revolutions, spontaneous or engineered. Some theories link the Illuminati and other secret societies to major historical revolutions, including the American Revolution, which was declared in 1776, the same year the Illuminati were founded. This coincidence led some to speculate about a possible connection between key American Revolution figures, such as George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, and the Illuminati. However, there's no evidence to support this theory. Several founding fathers like Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and George Washington were Freemasons, but there are no records indicating they were members of the Illuminati. In fact, Washington expressed concern about the group's influence in letters, suggesting he had no affiliation with them. The French Revolution, which began in 1789, 4 years after the Illuminati were officially disbanded, was a pivotal event that ended centuries of monarchy and championed ideals like liberty and equality. Were the Illuminati behind the French Revolution? This idea gained traction thanks to figures like French Abbé Augustin Barruel and Scottish physicist John Robison. In 1797, both published works claiming that the upheaval was the result of Masonic and Illuminati conspiracy. In memoirs illustrating the history of Jacobinism, Barruel argued that the Illuminati had infiltrated Masonic lodges to spread revolutionary ideas and bring down monarchies. John Robison, a former Mason, wrote Proofs of a Conspiracy, where he accused Freemasonry of having been infiltrated by Weishaupt's Illuminati. According to his claims, the Illuminati weren't merely after political change. They aimed to destroy religion and replace it with atheism. Beyond the French and American revolutions, could the Illuminati of another secret society have had the power to influence other social upheavals? The Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, which had a massive impact on history, has been pointed to by some as being supported by Western elite groups. Among historic movements in the Americas, the Mexican Revolution of 1910 is viewed by certain theorists as having strong Masonic involvement. Several of its leaders were known Freemasons, including Francisco Madero, the country's first democratically elected president. Between 2010 and 2012, a wave of protests swept through the Muslim world in what became known as the Arab Spring. It was a popular uprising where citizens in several Middle Eastern and North African countries stood up against authoritarian regimes. Although the main drivers were economic inequality, corruption, and lack of freedoms, theories emerged suggesting possible involvement by Western powers in its development. Some analysts have claimed that Western countries may have encouraged protest movements among local populations to destabilize regimes like Muammar Gaddafi's in Libya or Bashar al-Assad's in Syria, which were seen as opposing their interests. What if the Illuminati really exist? This possibility lies at the intersection of history and speculation. While historical records show that the Illuminati were disbanded by authorities in the late 18th century, it's conceivable they may have survived, adapted, and continued to operate in secrecy. As we've seen, Augustin Barruel and John Robison claimed in the late 1700s that the Illuminati had played a role in the French Revolution. If they managed to remain active since then, how might they have done it? And what strategies would they use to avoid detection? To ensure their survival, the Illuminati would have needed to evolve with changing historical and cultural landscapes, adopting new organizational structures and modes of communication. They might have abandoned overt rituals and rigid hierarchies in favor of a subtle, decentralized model built to evade the watchful eyes of authorities. Rather than gathering in large groups or high-profile venues, they would have formed informal networks of influential individuals aligned by a shared vision, operating independently. Their goals would rely on codes, encryption, and cutting-edge technology, constantly staying one step ahead of the world around them. An essential pillar for their survival would have been the ability to blend into established power structures, governments, corporations, and international institutions. Rather than functioning as an outside force, today's Illuminati would likely choose to integrate and manipulate from within, allowing them to operate without raising suspicion. They might present themselves as technocrats, philanthropists, or thought leaders, working discreetly while steering their actions toward long-term goals. Controlling information would be crucial to staying hidden, using technology and media to spread misinformation and shield the truth from exposure. In a world saturated with conspiracy theories, an effective strategy would be to flood the public with conflicting narratives, hiding reality in a sea of confusion. By doing this, any effort to reveal them would be dismissed as just another baseless fantasy floating around social media. This method is known as information flooding, a tactic that manipulates public perception by overwhelming people with contradictory content. Social networks became filled with facts, falsehoods, and speculation, making it harder to distinguish what's real. As a result, the truth loses credibility, buried beneath a mix of absurd and invented versions. A concept closely tied to this idea is collective gaslighting, where a powerful entity manipulates public perception so thoroughly that people begin to question even the most obvious truths. During the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union used disinformation tactics to sway public opinion and discredit their enemies. One striking example is Operation Infection, a Soviet campaign in which the KGB spread the false rumor that the AIDS virus had been engineered by the US as a biological weapon. The message was broadcast through various outlets entangled with conflicting narratives, making its origins hard to trace and fostering distrust toward the US government. In 2013, Edward Snowden revealed classified documents showing the massive amounts of personal data that were being collected from people around the world. Yet the official response focused more on controlling the narrative than addressing the substance of his leaks. Governments involved issued denials and labeled Snowden a traitor, shifting attention to his character rather than the content of his As a result, the urgent issue of mass surveillance and privacy was overshadowed by a storyline centered on Snowden's escape to Hong Kong and his eventual asylum in Russia. Meanwhile, opposing versions took hold. Some viewed him as a human rights hero, while others painted him as a possible agent for Russia or China. The idea that the Illuminati or another secret group could have been using these same methods is speculative. Yet, as we've seen, such techniques have already been employed. So what might be happening today that we'll only uncover decades from now, or perhaps never at all? Shocking theories about the Illuminati. The following theories about the Illuminati are highly speculative and lack concrete evidence, yet they continue to draw attention. Could they be true, part of disinformation campaigns, or simply viral content spread for profit? One of the most eye-catching claims is that the Illuminati possess the ability to alter time. According to some, they've uncovered ancient technologies or hidden knowledge that allow them to travel across eras, modifying events to secure their dominance. This idea is often linked to the alleged connection between the Illuminati and esoteric wisdom passed down from ancient civilizations like the Egyptians and the Sumerians, who are believed by some to have had a deep understanding of time and space. Another theory suggests the Illuminati have perfected spiritual or metaphysical techniques, such as the transcendental meditation of secret rituals, enabling them to influence past or future events without relying on technology. On a different front, some claim that the Illuminati have developed or gained access to climate manipulation technology. According to this theory, they control weather and natural disasters on a global scale. By using these tools, they could allegedly trigger hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires, and droughts, weaponizing these disasters to tighten their control and steer public behavior. One of the most controversial ideas proposes that the Illuminati have made contact with extraterrestrial civilizations, gaining access to technologies and knowledge far beyond current human capabilities. In exchange for offering game-changing advances in fields like energy, biotech, and defense, these aliens would receive permission to extract Earth's resources or conduct experiments on its surface. According to supporters of this theory, the sudden emergence of technologies like microchips, lasers, and ultra-resistant composite materials is evidence of collaboration with more advanced civilizations. As unbelievable as it may sound, hearings have taken place in the U.S. Congress where it was claimed that UFOs are extraterrestrial technologies and that alien bodies have been recovered. Several former officials have stated that the U.S. government possesses wreckage from non-human craft and biological remains that are not of this world, though they've yet to provide proof to support these claims. There have also been assertions that the U.S. government has established contact with the UFO phenomenon. Still, no details have been shared about the nature of this contact or the specifics of the technology involved. The Pentagon, for its part, has denied such claims. attributing the sightings to earthly sources like drones and rejecting the existence of secret programs involving alien spacecraft. Could the Illuminati, unknown groups, or government institutions be behind these events? Is this just disinformation, or is there a mix of truth and fiction in these stories? It's hard to say with certainty, but as we'll see, there are truths out there that may be just as unsettling, if not more, than everything we've discussed so far. The military-industrial complex. It has been suggested that behind the power we see lies a hidden force, one that uses the military-industrial complex as a tool for global control. With its overwhelming influence on politics and the economy, the military-industrial complex exhibits traits often associated with the workings of secret entities. Both operate in spheres where power is concentrated in a select few, granted exclusive access to information and resources, and where major decisions are made away from public oversight. The term military-industrial complex was famously used by Dwight D. Eisenhower in his 1961 farewell address, warning of the rising power of defense industries in shaping government policy. Eisenhower, a respected general before becoming president, understood the dangers of a relationship that grew too close between the military establishment, weapons manufacturers, and political leaders. In his speech, he cautioned that the military-industrial complex could steer national policy in a way that served corporate interests, particularly those of the arms industry, rather than the public good. Relationships like these, driven by economic gain and lucrative contracts, help sustain a state of ongoing militarization, potentially threatening global peace and stability. Defense industries across multiple nations influence governments to maintain or increase military spending, often citing external threats, whether real or exaggerated. This creates a steady flow of public funds towards private contractors, who in turn invest in lobbying efforts, PR campaigns, and political donations. Advanced technologies like drone and artificial intelligence systems have reshaped national security priorities and opened up new markets for defense corporations. Still, this raises ethical and strategic concerns. Is it justifiable to invest heavily in cutting-edge weapons while basic needs like healthcare and education go unfunded? How much of the true power and reach of the military-industrial complex remains hidden from public view? The Illuminati and global finance. When examining financial crises through a historical and economic lens, it becomes clear that their origins are varied and complex. Commonly identified causes include poor monetary policy, regulatory failures, irrational market behavior, and macroeconomic imbalances. But could it be that behind some of these crises, secret organizations are working to consolidate power or redirect wealth for their gain? The Great Depression stands as one of the most devastating economic collapses in modern history, beginning in the United States with the stock market crash of 1929. In the years leading up to it, banks and investors encouraged unchecked speculation, offering loans to purchase stocks and inflating a financial bubble that was destined to burst. Out of this crisis came two major global financial institutions, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank. Some theorists argue that these organizations have served as tools for powerful economic nations to extend influence and maintain global control. Another landmark crisis was the 1973 oil shock, which reshaped the world's economic and political landscape. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, led by Arab nations, drastically cut oil production and sharply raised prices. This move came in response to U.S. and Western support for Israel during the Yom Kippur War. The resulting oil embargo caused crude prices to double and triggered a severe energy crisis across industrialized nations. Black Monday, October 19, 1987, marked one of the most dramatic stock market crashes in history. Global markets plunged, and the Dow Jones lost 22.6% in a single day. Several causes were identified, including automated trading programs, growing global economic uncertainty, and widespread investor panic. However, speculation emerged that major financial institutions may have exploited early trading algorithms to intentionally trigger the crash, buying up undervalued assets afterward at bargain prices. The collapse of the Bretton Woods systems in 1971, when the U.S. under President Nixon abandoned the gold standard, is also viewed by some as a part of a plot by financial elites. This move allegedly aimed to weaken national currencies and position the U.S. dollar as the dominant global reserve currency. Some believe that this decision benefited international banking groups by enabling the expansion of debt-based financial systems. Still, the move was also a response to real economic challenges, like trade deficits and the inability to back the dollar with adequate gold reserves. Another major downturn was the 2008 financial crisis. Investment giants like Lehman Brothers and Goldman Sachs were accused of deliberately manipulating the high-risk mortgage market. According to some theories, the goal was to maximize short-term profits, even while knowing the entire system was on the brink of collapse. Others claim the crisis was orchestrated to justify massive bailouts that ultimately strengthened the grip of financial elites. So was the 2008 meltdown the result of reckless behavior, financial deregulation, and speculative bubbles? Or was it something more calculated, planned by a powerful few? The possibilities are unsettling. The documentary Inside Job explores the roots, impact, and accountability surrounding the global financial crash of 2008. It highlights the roles of politicians, regulators, and academics, many of whom had deep ties to Wall Street or had worked within the very firms that were supposed to oversee, raising serious concerns about conflicts of interest and systematic corruption. It also reveals how certain high-ranking government officials were complicit, defending the very practices that triggered the crisis in exchange for lucrative consulting deals or positions within major corporations. Charles Ferguson, the film's director, features testimonies from individuals who lost their jobs, homes, and life savings as a direct result of the financial collapse. In stark contrast, top executives from the institutions responsible avoided accountability and walked away with massive bonuses, much of it funded by taxpayer-financed government bailouts. The title Inside Job suggests that the crisis wasn't just an economic accident, but rather a carefully orchestrated scheme by financial and political elites to preserve a corrupt system that enriched the few at the expense of the many. Eyes Wide Shut, a hidden message from Stanley Kubrick? Stanley Kubrick's 1999 film Eyes Wide Shut, which explores themes of desire, insecurity, and jealousy, has often been linked to the Illuminati due to its portrayal of a secretive society operating behind closed doors. While the film doesn't explicitly mention any such group, its imagery and themes have fueled speculation about indirect connections. One of the most talked about scenes is set in the mansion, where a circle of wealthy, powerful individuals engage in a mysterious ritual featuring Venetian masks, eerie chants, and secret codes. The symbolism in the costumes, the unsettling atmosphere, and the event's exclusivity have led some to believe Kubrick was subtly critiquing hidden societies. Another reason Eyes Wide Shut is associated with the Illuminati is the mystique surrounding Kubrick himself. Known for films packed with layered meanings, he's seen by some as having used this movie to reveal what he allegedly knew about global elites. There's also a theory that Kubrick had access to privileged knowledge about world power structures, supported by his earlier film, 2001, A Space Odyssey. That movie delves into human evolution, higher intelligence, and cosmic mysteries. The film's black monolith is especially intriguing. It appears at pivotal moments in human history, such as the awakening of intelligence in early hominids or the deep space mission to Jupiter. This monolith has been interpreted as a metaphor for an external force guiding evolution, closely tied to the idea that the hidden elites or superior entities, real or symbolic, shape civilization from the shadows. In that light, the monolith becomes a symbol of powers beyond ordinary human understanding, functioning as catalysts for profound change in the course of humanity. Initiation rites of the Illuminati. The structure of the Bavarian Illuminati was organized into levels or degrees, similar to other secret societies like Freemasonry. Each degree represented a different stage of knowledge and commitment with specific rituals tied to each level. Before someone could undergo an initiation rite, they had to pass through a rigorous selection process. The Illuminati sought to recruit influential individuals, intellectuals, and those inclined toward progressive ideals. Their ranks included professors, writers, lawyers, and members of the cultural elite of the time. Candidates were discreetly observed by members of the order to assess their character, abilities, and capability with Illuminist values. Only those deemed worthy would be allowed into the circle. Once selected, the candidate was invited to take part in an initiation ceremony, an event rich in symbolism and conducted with great solemnity. Prior to the ritual, the aspiring member had to demonstrate commitment and a willingness to detach from external influences, including dogmatic religions and rigid political allegiances. They were asked to reflect deeply on their beliefs and to be ready to question everything they once held as truth. Preparation included a period of isolation and the study of texts handpicked by the order's leaders. These readings covered topics from philosophy to science, aimed at opening the candidate's mind and preparing them to receive the teachings of the Illuminati. In addition, the candidate was required to swear absolute secrecy regarding their involvement, further reinforcing the exclusive and tightly guarded nature of the organization. The initiation itself was a choreographed event, crafting to leave a lasting impression on the initiate. It typically took place in remote locations within dimly lit rooms adorned with symbols evoking knowledge and power. The goal was to immerse the candidate in an atmosphere of mystery and gravity, underscoring the profound significance of the experience they were about to undergo. At the beginning of the ceremony, the candidate was greeted by a guide, a higher-ranking member who accompanied them throughout the process. Their eyes were blindfolded, symbolizing a state of ignorance prior to reaching enlightenment. Led by this mentor, the aspirant was brought before a council of senior members who questioned them about their motivations, values, and willingness to commit to the ideals of the order. During the ritual, the candidate was required to take a solemn oath, pledging absolute loyalty to the Illuminati, a commitment to uphold the principles of reason and freedom, and a vow to keep all activities and rituals strictly confidential. The oath was recited while placing one's hand on a symbolic text, often a philosophical treatise or a manuscript written by the order's founders. Objects such as candles, skulls, scrolls, and secret seals were incorporated into the ceremony, representing ideas like knowledge, mortality, and the weight of responsibility carried by the enlightened. Once the oath was completed, the blindfold was removed, a symbolic gesture marking the candidate's transition from the darkness of ignorance to the light of understanding. From that moment on, the individual was considered a full member of the Illuminati and was granted access to the order's teachings and inner knowledge. Following initiation, the new member began a path of learning and active participation within the order. The Illuminati encouraged intellectual debate, the exchange of ideas, and personal growth as essential tools for achieving enlightenment. To prove their dedication, initiates were expected to take tangible action, recruiting new members, writing essays on philosophical topics, or contributing to projects aligned with the organization's goals. These rituals were performed by the Bavarian Illuminati during the 18th century. The idea that similar ceremonies might still occur today is intriguing, though there's no evidence to support it. If such practices exist in another group, they would likely be carried out in extreme secrecy and with notable differences. The Illuminati and religion. The Bavarian Illuminati held a critical stance toward organized religion, particularly the Catholic Church, which wielded significant influence across Europe in the 18th century. Their view of religion was shaped by Enlightenment and rationalist philosophy, which promoted freedom of thought and the questioning of traditional power structures, including those rooted in religion. Adam Weishaupt, founder of the Bavarian Illuminati and trained as a theologian, didn't aim to abolish religion altogether. Instead, he sought to reform it. He believed that faith had been twisted by religious institutions into a tool for controlling the masses and preserving their authority. In his perspective, dogmatic doctrines and the rigid church rituals were instruments of oppression, suppressing reason and hindering intellectual progress. Because of this, the Illuminati advocated for a society where religion would be separated from the state, and where education and reason would become the foundation of human advancement. Some members believed personal spirituality could coexist with rationalism, as long as it wasn't dictated by authoritarian religious institutions. Their core mission was to free humanity from the grip of religious elites by encouraging critical and independent thinking. Seen as a serious threat by the Catholic Church and other conservative religious institutions of the time, the Illuminati were ultimately persecuted and officially disbanded. While intellectual progress and reason were often viewed as positive forces, some theorists today suggest that a secret elite of the Illuminati themselves may be crafting a global religion as a new method of mass control. Despite globalization, cultural and religious differences continue to spark conflict, fueling wars, intolerance, and ideological or spiritual tensions. The concept of a universal religion suggests that sharing the same core beliefs and values could eliminate these divisions, paving the way for a more peaceful humanity. From a practical standpoint, such a religion could streamline global governance by uniting populations under common moral and ethical principles, simplifying decision-making on a planetary scale. What might this universal religion look like? If the Illuminati or any other organization were behind its creation, it would likely blend elements from major religions and philosophical systems to attract the widest audience possible. It may incorporate the love and compassion of Christianity, the harmony of Buddhism, the justice of Islam, and the spirituality of Hinduism, weaving together a belief system that resonates across diverse cultures. A modern universal religion would likely abandon rigid dogmas and rituals, focusing instead on abstract principles like spiritual connection, environmental respect, and collective growth. Through social media, artificial intelligence, and virtual reality, its teachings could be spread globally, tailored to each person using algorithms that adapt to their emotional and cultural preferences. Some theorists suggest that efforts toward a universal faith are already underway, albeit subtly. Movements like Eucharism, which seeks unity among Christian denominations, and global interfaith dialogue, which highlights common ground between religions, may represent early steps toward this broader goal. Others point to modern trends like New Age spirituality, which blends elements from various religious traditions with scientific and philosophical ideas. According to historian Yuval Noah Harari, author of books such as *Sapiens*, humanism is the dominant ideology of the modern era, a kind of secular religion that places the human being and their experiences at the center of the universe. Rather than relying on supernatural gods, humanism values principles like individual rights, personal freedom, and the pursuit of happiness. In Homo Deus, Harari suggests that technology is giving rise to a new ideology he calls dataism, which sees data and information as the ultimate source of power and authority. In this worldview, data becomes the new God. Collecting and processing vast amounts of information is seen as the key to solving nearly every issue, from climate change to healthcare and economic planning. Artificial intelligence and algorithms take on the role of modern priests. Critical decisions are increasingly handed over to algorithmic systems that run everything from social media to financial markets and medical diagnostics. The Bilderberg Group, a link to the Illuminati? Some believe this exclusive club is a modern extension of the Illuminati, or that both belong to the global elite aiming to establish a new world order. These theories claim the Bilderberg meetings serve as a platform where decisions with worldwide consequences are made, away from public scrutiny and without accountability. If a global elite is truly manipulating events for their own gain, is the Bilderberg Group that elite? Do they represent a continuation of the Illuminati, or are they separate entities altogether? It seems unlikely that a secret organization with ambitions of world control would hold such visible meetings on critical global matters. Still, understanding the club's purpose offers insight into its influence. The Bilderberg Group is an annual conference attended by powerful figures in politics, economics, academia, and media. Guests include royalty, heads of state, corporate leaders, and financial institution executives. Founded in 1954, the group takes its name from the Hotel de Bilderberg in the Netherlands, where the first meeting was held. Its stated goal is to foster dialogue and mutual understanding between Europe and North America in a setting free from external pressure. The meetings are marked by exclusivity and secrecy. Participants in Bilderberg meetings are hand-picked by a steering committee, with the guest list changing each year, though certain figures are invited repeatedly due to their influence and status. The discussions typically cover topics like global economics, international politics, security, technology, and other pressing issues of the day. Because the meetings are private, attendees can speak freely without the burden of formal stances or public oversight. They follow the Chatham House Rule, which allows participants to use the information shared, but prohibits disclosing the identity or affiliation of those who contributed to it. That's the official version of what the Bilderberg Group is and how it functions. Still, many wonders, is that the full story? Or is global domination quietly on the agenda? Critics argue that the group's lack of transparency fuels speculation about hidden motives. Some believe the club may be setting global policy behind closed doors, free from democratic accountability or public input. The organizers and participants argue that privacy is essential to ensure a free exchange, arguing that the presence of media could limit the sincerity of the discussions. The Trilateral Commission. This is another organization that sparks as much curiosity as it does suspicion. Established in 1973 by David Rockefeller, it was created as a platform for dialogue among leaders from North America, Europe, and the Asia-Pacific region. Its stated goal is to promote cooperation between these areas to address global economic and political challenges. For critics, however, it represents the hidden influence of global elites. Founded during the height of the Cold War, when the world was divided between the US-led and the Soviet-led blocs, Its mission was to encourage collaboration among developed economies to tackle shared problems like financial stability, globalization, and energy crises. Unlike international bodies such as the United Nations, the Trilateral Commission has no formal mandate or executive power. Instead, it serves as a space for reflection where members exchange ideas and seek consensus on major global issues. Its meetings are closed to the public, and the discussions are not disclosed, which adds to the perception of secrecy and exclusivity. Supporters argue that the Commission plays a vital role in the interconnected world. By bringing together sharp minds from powerful regions, it can generate innovative ideas and global strategies that benefit everyone. But critics argue that this narrative of global cooperation masks hidden agendas. While the Commission presents itself as an informal forum for dialogue, the secrecy surrounding its discussions and the presence of highly influential members raises suspicions about its true motives. Some claim that these meetings are used to shape global policies that favor elites at the expense of the general population. Members include corporate executives, bankers, and politicians with considerable power. One document often cited by critics is the 1975 report, The Crisis of Democracy, commissioned by the Commission, which examined governance challenges in Western democracies. According to skeptics, the report's conclusions appear to support concentrating power in the hands of elites, suggesting that participatory democracies are too inefficient to manage complex modern societies. It's difficult to gauge the Commission's direct impact on global policy, since it doesn't issue formal decisions or enforce policies. Still, its indirect influence is substantial. Many members go on to hold key positions in government, major corporations, and international institutions. For instance, figures like former U.S. President Jimmy Carter and National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski were active participants in the Commission. Michael Foucault's disciplinary power. Theories about the Illuminati or other power structures often involve aggressive tactics like mind control. However, if such influence exists, it's likely far more subtle than it appears. Michael Foucault, one of the most influential thinkers of the 20th century, introduced the idea of disciplinary power. He described how control in modern societies isn't enforced through brute force, but rather through institutions like schools, churches, prisons, and economic systems. According to Foucault, these institutions shape our behavior, the way we think, and even how we perceive ourselves, all without our conscious awareness. From an early age, education instills not just knowledge, but behaviors, being on time, respecting authority, and following established rules. The economic system assigns us specific roles. We're workers, consumers, or debtors, and our lives revolve around these identities. Foucault argued that disciplinary power doesn't need physical violence to maintain control. Instead, it works on our minds and bodies, conditioning us to obey social norms without constant surveillance. It's a quiet yet powerful form of control. We act as though someone is always watching, adjusting our behavior to fit the norms we've internalized. If we follow Foucault's logic, disciplinary power requires architects, Someone must be designing the education systems, religious doctrines, economic frameworks, and the legal codes that shape how society functions. Let's imagine a social elite has designed systems to keep humanity within certain boundaries. For instance, they may have shaped the education system to focus more on producing efficient workers than on cultivating critical thinkers. They could have restructured religions to emphasize obedience, redirecting spiritual practices into something easily controlled. Even the economy might be manipulated to keep people in debt and dependent, creating the illusion of stability while maintaining invisible control. Disciplinary power is so effective precisely because it doesn't appear to be in control. People regulate themselves, believing they're simply doing what's right. If the Illuminati were behind such a system, their greatest success would be making their influence nearly invisible. They wouldn't need to appear publicly or directly enforce control. Just ensuring the systems they built run in their favor would be enough. There's no concrete evidence that modern institutions are run by secret elites, but their influence on our lives is undeniable, and these structures often seem to serve the few rather than the many. Take the global economic system, for example. It largely favors massive corporations and banks, while everyday people struggle with debt and have little ability to save. Likewise, education often focuses on training students to enter the job market, rather than helping them develop a deeper, well-rounded understanding of the world. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, The Impossibility of Controlling the World. We've explored ideas about a new world order and alleged efforts to control individuals or entire societies, but is such control even possible? In books like The Black Swan and Anti-Fragile, essayist Nassim Nicholas Taleb argues that randomness, uncertainty, and unexpected events, which he calls black swans, play a decisive role in shaping the world. According to Taleb, these events are rare, impossible to predict, and often go unnoticed until they happen. His theory suggests that due to the chaotic nature of reality, no one can fully control the world or foresee every outcome. If Taleb is right, it would be incredibly difficult for any elite to successfully execute long-term plans that exploit the majority. He emphasizes that systems like the economy, politics, and society are inherently complex. Because of that complexity, any attempt to fully control them is bound to fail. Our predictions are often based on past patterns that don't necessarily apply to the future. A secret organization hoping to dominate the world would have to account for an infinite number of variables: natural disasters, technological breakthroughs, social movements, and unpredictable human decisions. A key concept in Taleb's work is anti-fragility, the idea that certain systems don't just survive chaos and uncertainty, but actually grow stronger because of them. However, the centralized controlling nature often attributed to organizations like the Illuminati stands in stark contrast to anti-fragility. A rigid system dependent upon hidden hierarchies and over-planning would be vulnerable to collapse when faced with the unexpected, what Taleb calls a black swan. Moreover, the inherent randomness of human behavior and natural forces make any long-term attempt at total control ineffective. The diversity of opinions, Cultures and values across the globe mean societies are naturally difficult to manage. Any strategy aimed at enforcing global uniformity would likely provoke resistance, disorder, or even collapse. One of Taleb's core principles is that much of what we perceive as control is actually an illusion. Even the most seemingly stable systems are subject to sudden, unforeseeable disruptions. A secret group trying to dominate the world would fall into a dangerous trap by placing too much faith in this illusion, underestimating both the unpredictability of the environment and their own ability to manage it. Guy Debord's Society of the Spectacle. We've discussed education and economics as potential tools of disciplinary power, but there are other, more subtle ways to shape thought and behavior. In 1967, philosopher and filmmaker Guy Debord published The Society of the Spectacle, where he argued that modern societies are dominated by images, representations, and narratives that shape our perception of reality. Debord explained that in the modern world, the spectacle functions as a central mechanism for organizing life. Media, social networks, advertising, and film don't just inform or entertain us. They also define what matters, what we should desire, and how we ought to behave. These images don't reflect reality as it is. Instead, they create an artificial version of it. For instance, success is often portrayed through consumption, owning a new car, vacationing in exotic places, or wearing trendy clothing. In this way, the spectacle entertains us, but also directs our goals and priorities, keeping us focused on appearances while we ignore what genuinely affects our lives. According to this idea, the Illuminati or other elites wouldn't need to govern directly or use violence to impose control. It would be enough for them to dominate the stories we're told and the values we internalize. Movies, TV shows, and music could be used as tools to reinforce the existing system, promote consumerism, or distract people from pressuring issues like inequality and the structures of power. Social media, with its ability to spread trends instantly and shape opinions in real time, would play a crucial role in this strategy. Entertainment content might push values that favor individual competition over collaboration, ensuring people stay focused on succeeding within the system rather than questioning it. News cycles could be filled with trivial controversies or attention-grabbing stories designed to divert attention. By controlling the flow of information, they would shape what we see as relevant, desirable, or true. This approach to media aligns with the concept of the endless treadmill, where individuals driven by ideals of personal success and achievement constantly compete for system-imposed goals like recognition, status, or material wealth. Rather than asking whether these goals lead to a meaningful life, people remain stuck in a never-ending loop of striving and consumption. While we stay busy watching shows, sharing memes, and arguing over the latest scandals on social media, we often stop paying attention to the power structures that truly shape our lives. If the Illuminati were behind the system, they might be using the spectacle as a tool to keep us focused on the superficial, while they make decisions that deeply affect the world behind the scenes. In the end, there's no evidence that the Illuminati are still active. They were likely disbanded in the 18th century, not long after they began, but the possibility remains that other organizations are working behind the curtain, trying to influence global affairs for their own benefit while keeping their actions hidden. The real question isn't whether the Illuminati exists, it's who truly holds the power. Is it even possible to control the world? Are there people out there trying to do just that? And if someone does control the system, could their greatest triumph be convincing us that we're free? Are we really chasing our own dreams, or simply following a path someone else has laid out for us? What would we do if we discovered our choices were never fully ours to begin with?